Welcome to the Never Ending Backlog podcast, your place for short reviews from a gamer with the goal of reducing his backlog. From adventures to sandboxes, join our host as we walk through a collection of unplayed treasures. Now, let's take a look at the featured game of this episode of the Never Ending Backlog.
Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Never Ending Backlog podcast. I'm your host Zach, and today we will be doing something a little bit different today. So as you may have heard, this is the 60th anniversary for SEGA. And SEGA, I'll have to say right now, has played probably the biggest impact in my life regarding gaming, whether it's PC, video, console, handheld, really anything. You know, SEGA's always been a kind of just the go-to system for me. I love Nintendo. I love Sony, Microsoft. I love all the companies. You know, big fan of all game development companies, as you probably have heard from my podcast. But I really don't talk negative about any of them, actually. But Sega is one of those things that, you know, it's like Mario to me. You know, Sonic has always been like Mario to me. And personally, Sonic's always been better. But, you know, I'm not going to go down those fights. You know, it's always like those PlayStation versus Xbox, you know, fanboys fighting each other in the PC Master Race and just everybody fighting. So, you know, Sega means a lot to me. I actually don't have that many notes up for this one. This is going to be much more of a conversation. And basically what it is, it's going to be a prep for next week. Next week, I'm going to do a Sega week, essentially. We're going to review Sonic the Hedgehog 2, because that was recently given away for free on Steam. Sonic Adventure DX. Sega All-Stars Racing. Streets of Kamurocho? That was also free, given away during Sega's 60th anniversary week. And I'm either going to do Sonic Adventure 2 or the Sega Mega Drive. All these games have less than an hour playtime. Some of these are new. Now, there is a little bit of a stipulation to this. I've played Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the SEGA Genesis countless times. Sonic Adventure for the SEGA Dreamcast, I loved it. I played that thing all the time. Same with Sonic Adventure 2. I actually had the demo for, and I used to play the demo all the time on the Dreamcast. Love that. Sega All-Stars Racing. I don't know if I played that one. I know I played Sega Racing. I actually like Mario Kart more than Sega Racing. Sega Racing just seems to go a little bit crazier. It was along those lines like Donkey Kong Racing and all those stuff. It just seemed, or Crash Bandicoot Racing, just seemed a little bit different to me. It wasn't really my cup of tea. Mario Kart always just did it for me. Streets of Kamurocho, never played it. I like Streets of Rage. I'm not sure if that fits the same bill or not. And the Sega Mega Drive obviously has a big collection of different games. I have the Sega Genesis Mini, which I love. Pretty much anything Sega I love. So this is just going to be kind of a preface to that. You know, prepare for that for next week. I'm just going to chat about some memories I have with Sega. So it's going to be more of a casual conversation, not reviewing anything in particular. I'll mention some games that I love. Some things and accessories that I've had that I've loved, and so on and so forth. So we'll just jump right into it. The very first console I ever owned, my brother had purchased, was the SEGA Genesis. I remember getting it at Toys R Us. I remember seeing it locked up in a case. I remember, I think it was the Super Nintendo was sitting right next to it, and he chose the Genesis, and I'm so grateful he did. You know, we grabbed Sonic, Echo the Dolphin, all these just terrific games. They're so vibrant in colors, and the sound was just beautiful sounding. And I remember there's a local, you know, rental store where you actually have like the big plastic clamshell boxes that the Genesis games came in. And I remember I'd rent like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Asterix, and all those type of games. GoldenEye, Altered Beast was one of my favorite games of all time. Just the intro sounds were amazing, and it was terrifying of a game. Like this man turning into the beast was just insane at that time. So Genesis was my first system. I loved that system. It got me into gaming without a doubt. I remember I eventually got a SEGA Game Gear next, where I'd basically play Asterix on that, as well as Lion King. For accessories, I had the magnifying glass. I'm not sure if you remember that one. But the Game Gear was amazing. The fact that it would eat through 6 AA batteries in like an hour stunk, but it was basically a mini TV. And for a person like myself that lived relatively off the grid from technology, other than like the technology I owned, it was pretty awesome to be able to say like, yeah, I got a little mini TV I'm bringing with me. This is awesome. Or whenever we traveled to the grocery store, I could play that game because it'd be like a 30-minute trip each way to get to the grocery store. So, you know, the Game Gear was a pretty awesome system. I enjoyed it. I never had a Nomad. Always wanted one. Thought it'd be pretty cool. I do remember always going And I always, you always look back at these type of moments where you look back at like, oh, I remember going to the store and I remember seeing like the SEGA Genesis 3, which was the smaller one, which is basically like the PlayStation Slim. I remember it had like, I think it was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came with it. And I remember like all the stores were like just giving them away. They had the new ones coming out. This one was getting purged basically. And they were in the clearance racks. And I always remember I was like, yeah, this is really cool, but who's going to want this? And now you see like the sealed box copies go for hundreds of dollars. And you're just like, man, they were literally giving those away for like 10, 15 bucks. Really wish I would have done that. And I would buy clearance games. There was a fighting ring that you could buy for the SEGA Genesis, an accessory, a peripheral, that it plugs into one of your control ports, and it basically was an infrared octagon that you stood in, and depending on where you punched, you'd break a laser, like the infrared beam, and it would basically register that as an action item. So it really didn't matter if you punched or kicked. It didn't matter. You just had to move over. You didn't break the infrared line. But it was all this stuff. So it's like, oh, I'm going to punch over here. That's A. Over here, B. Up arrow, down arrow. So it was cool. It was a fun thing. I remember getting that. I also had, this is crazy too, they had a vest that you could put on. And the vest was basically a vibration. So it was like impact. So it was like, doo, doo, doo. So you could play like a Street Fighter game or a Mortal Kombat. And you basically would feel like the punches and kicks. I remember it never worked well. I remember it was stuck on one time. And it's just like, bah, 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 where to get your chest. And you're like, oh, this is terrifying. I mean, it didn't hurt or anything like that. But it's just such cool. The accessories back then were just so unique and just random. I loved it. That was so cool. So, the Genesis was great. The Game Gear was great. I did have a Sega Saturn. I remember I went to my local pawn shop and they had all these Sega Saturn discs, so I'd buy all of them. Can't say I really got into any of them. I think Sonic Spin I got into, the 3D one. I think there was Echo for the Saturn as well, and I played that a little bit as well, but Saturn is never really as much my thing. The biggest one I got into, without a doubt, post the Genesis was the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was everything to me. Like I said, my brother got me into the Genesis. My brother was also much older, so he, traveled quite a bit, and he'd always play in the arcades with me. We'd play Crazy Taxi, which, if you know me at all, is my kind of holy grail game. There's nothing that compares to this. It's got my favorite band, one of my favorite bands, The Offspring, in it. It's got an amazing soundtrack. It's got, if you play the original, it has references to like Tropicana, KFC, record, all these different cool, like, just vintage not vintage, but older things that are no longer around as much, or not the same designs or brands. But I loved it. I remember, like, as soon as you jump in the car, it's like there's The Offspring just blaring. So just so many good memories with Crazy Taxi. So the Dreamcast was easily, when I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, this console is basically what they run the arcades on. This is amazing. So obviously I bought Crazy Taxi 1, 2. That's also where I got into Sonic Adventure. Because like I said, I played all the other Sonics before that with my brother, with my friends. In fact, there's a buddy of mine, I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast. When I take the school bus, there's a longer school bus, he would collect a lot of games, I'd collect a lot of games, and we'd just trade games. So there was times where he'd bring a plastic garbage bag, massive one, filled with SEGA Genesis carts or Super Nintendo carts, and we just swap and trade. It was so much fun. There's so many memories there with that stuff, but it was a good time. But anyway, so Dreamcast was great. Sonic Adventure is where I got started. I had the little, oh my gosh, I can't remember what the name of it was. The memory card unit. I think they actually call it the MCU memory card unit. Had a little display screen on it, and you could actually like raise your little, oh my gosh, I can't remember these things. Like the egg creatures, like a Tamagotchi, basically. And it was such a cool idea. And I loved that game. I remember because I love any game that's in a tropical setting. I basically feel like I was born on a beach, but I'm not. I wish I was. So I love that tropical setting, and that game was very tropical. It was like a whole little world. The whale chasing you and stuff like that was cool. The beaches were beautiful. The different characters were cool. I always played as a robot, because that was just awesome. And overall, like the Chaos Emeralds. There you go, the Chaos. It was just a cool game. It was a different spin on the Sonic series that I'm used to. Graphics were really well done. I mean, the Sega Dreamcast had remarkable graphics. It's a bummer about all the marketing failures they had. I read a book about a lot of the failed promotions they tried. As a person that's very interested in marketing and involved in marketing myself, find it very interesting. Just a lot of cool stuff out there about, what happened, unfortunately. And I also remember the SEGA Dreamcast, those things were getting purged cheap as well. I remember the SEGA Sports, which is what I had, the black edition that had like SEGA Sports on it, which I didn't play sports games, was just like $50 a piece. And I was like, man, now looking back, I wish I would have found one. And I remember them mentioning this on a news story a while ago, because I always love these type of news stories as well, where they're like, oh, well, we found this Toys R Us, semi truck that was full of all these old Dreamcasts that are new in box, new stock. And they were selling it for like $150 on eBay. And this was like 5-6 years ago, but that's pretty awesome. And I've purchased things from those type of things. I have a Jurassic Park The Lost World slot car track. That was one of those new old stock that they found in an old semi, and I bought it for really cheap, and I had that when I was a kid, so it was cool to buy a piece of my old childhood back. But yeah, so Dreamcast were really cool. Kind of a failed endeavor, unfortunately. There was a alien versus human tank game that played online. I never played it online because I didn't have the internet, but I remember you'd like drive around a tank and you blow up aliens, and it was a phenomenal game. So if you can ever get your hand on a Dreamcast, try it out. Like, it holds up better than you might think it will. I've gone back to N64s, Super Nintendos, Genesis even, and you're just like, they're all right. They're okay. Dreamcast holds up pretty well, actually. It's not like going to be the most 3D amazing graphics, but it looks like an old school arcade because it's built on the same principles. So it's actually pretty cool to play it. So if you find yourself, wanting to play a retro game but not too far retro, Dreamcast might be what you're looking for. But yeah, other than that, the Dreamcast is obviously what got me into arcade machines, buying them. I've owned quite a few of them. I owned a Time Crisis 3 arcade machine. I'm sitting right next to a Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. I've had a lot of random ones. It's a cool hobby to get into. I am still looking for a Crazy Taxi arcade machine. I've seen a few here and there, but the prices are just astronomical. And it's a 1,200 pound arcade machine. Like, it takes some logistics to move it around a little bit, and getting it in and, disassembling it. It breaks apart in weird spots, the sit down version. I was trying to find the Japanese version, which is a stand up version that you can use a bar stool with, which would be much more user friendly to move around. Logistically, it'd be easier. But yeah, so Sega, obviously, huge fanboy, always will be. I had the best memories with it. And I'm really looking forward to next week. The 60th anniversary is a big moment. I'm very proud of Sega. Well done. You guys gone through some weird stuff over the years. But I think they still hold their own pretty well. So next week, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Adventure DX, Sega All-Stars Racing, Streets of Kamurocho, Sega Mega Drive. And yeah, it might either be that or it might be Sonic Adventure 2. I might combine two of them. We'll just see what I'm up to this weekend and when we're recording. So welcome to the Never Ending Backlog podcast. We'll see you next week with Sega Madness. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.